Well, are you soft on crime? God bless America.
This is you to the defendant. You were viewing sex acts between children who were not much younger than you. And this whole discussion is about why you're only giving him 3 months. Judge, he was 18. These kids are 8. I don't see in what sense they're peers. Help me understand this.
Senator, I don't have the record of that entire case.
I mean, this is a new low.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist,
of the-
so I'm not.
The fact that you can't give me a straight answer about something as fundamental as what a woman is underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive education that we are hearing about.
Which I think you're the only Supreme Court nominee in history who's been unable to answer the question, what is a woman? Press have suggested that the criticism that has been raised has been somehow cherry-picked. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to discuss each and every case you've had. And I've now examined all of the child porn cases you've had as a federal district judge. And what's striking is in these cases, in half of them, in 5, you sentence the defendant to the absolute lowest sentence under law.
I want to tell you, when I look at you, this is why I get emotional. How dare we put someone who's soft on crime?
I imposed the sentence that I believed was the sentence that was required by law.
Welcome back to the channel. This is Anna's Thoughts and Musical Parodies, and I am Anna, your hostess. Thank you so much for being here today.
I would like to give a quick shout out to my friend Christina Hoover, who was nice enough to send me a picture of herself modeling one of the shirts from my merch store that she actually drew the lion for. You'll find the link for the store that's full of all kinds of fun stuff on the second page of the website that is linked in the description of this video and every video. Thank you so much in advance for your support, and now let's get into it. So, according to whitehouse.gov, President Biden nominates Ketanji Brown Jackson to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. And they go on to say, on February 25th, 2022, President Joe Biden nominated Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to become the 116th Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And I just came across this report from CNN today that says Joe Manchin says he will vote for Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. And they say that this move from the West Virginia Democratic senator all but guarantees that she will be confirmed. So generally, I wouldn't take anything from an outlet like CNN seriously at all. But I mean, I don't have any reason to believe that this Democratic guy would not be voting for Ketanji. And their reasoning, by the way, as to why it would all but secure her victory is that West Virginia is a swing state, so it would help swing the election in her favor. But, you know, I'm also not surprised that the Biden administration picked this woman in particular because, you know, not only is she a black woman like Joe Biden said he was going to pick, but she is quite an extreme leftist, which this administration has shown itself to be. And if you don't know what I mean, here we go. Let me explain. For one thing, Ketanji serves on the board of a school that promotes critical race theory, and she has nice things to say about this place, which is Georgetown Day School. She said, since becoming part of the GDS community 7 years ago, Patrick, her husband, and I have witnessed the transformative power of a rigorous, progressive education that is dedicated to fostering critical thinking, independence, and social justice. Jackson said this in the winter 2019-2020 edition of Georgetown Day Schools magazine. Some anti-racist resources recommended by the school include Richard Delgado's Critical Race Theory, a video by Kimberly Crenshaw entitled The Urgency of Intersectionality, and Peggy McIntosh's White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. Delgado and Crenshaw are notable originators of CRT. Also on the list is Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, which declares that capitalism is essentially racist and racism is essentially capitalist. The worst part, in my opinion, is that he argues in the book that racial discrimination is acceptable if it's aimed at creating equity or equal outcomes.
But that's not all, folks.
On January 20th of 2020, Ketanji gave an MLK Day lecture at University of Miami School of Law. And at the conclusion of that lecture, the transcript reads, "And I will finish with what might be my favorite civil rights photograph of modern times. This iconic image was taken during a 2016 protest of the police-involved fatal shootings of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile. It has won several awards and has a name. It's called Taking a Stand in Baton Rouge." The picture features a nurse from Pennsylvania named Aisha Evans who had traveled to Louisiana to attend her first protest. She was arrested by the two heavily armed officers you see in the photograph and spent the night and most of the following day in jail. And Ketanji says, "Miss Evans is unflinchingly courageous, purposeful, and authentic. Above all, she exudes and demands dignity."
I needed a refresher on what actually happened with these cases because I don't think I really followed them maybe at all at the time that they happened back in 2016. So here is some dash cam footage from each of the two cases for you to get an idea of what we're talking about here.
Now, police dash cam video released just this week.
Well, sir. Good. How are you?
Shedding new light on the moments leading up to that shooting.
You have your license and insurance?
That's when Castile reveals he has a gun, which he had a license to carry. About 40 seconds after approaching the car, Officer Geronimo Yanez opens fire.
Sir, I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me. Don't reach for it then. Don't pull it out. Don't pull it out.
He fired a total of 7 rounds into the car. But what's not seen in either video is what Castile was actually reaching for. Officer Yanez's defense team says he feared Castile was reaching for that gun.
I told him not to reach for it, and then he kept it right there, and I told him to take his hands off of it, and then he had his grip a lot wider than a wallet.
Back on. Damn, what you talking about? Don't move, bro. Stop. What I did? I'm saying what I did. So don't move on. Shoot your. Put your hands on the car. I'm saying what happened, man. Hold on, my hands is on the car. Tase his ass. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Pop him again, Howie. What the Hey, bro. Where's the gun? Where's the gun, Howie? It's in my car. I got it. Oh, stupid.
So, you know, those were both tragic situations where somebody ended up dying, where it could have been prevented fairly easily. But they didn't necessarily seem like, you know, just brutal police killings. In the first one, you see that the guy appeared to be reaching for his gun after being asked a couple different times not to. If I was him, I probably would have stopped and said, okay, so what exactly do you want me to do? Do you want me to still get my ID out? I would have just been very careful with what I did there. Maybe the police officer overreacted, but I don't know. I've never been a police officer in the field, and they really have to watch out for their own lives, you know? And then in the second one, at first it seemed like the tasing was unnecessary and over the top to me. But then I did notice that Alton took his hand off of the car right before they tased him. Maybe it was still a little unnecessary. I'm not sure. Again, I've never been a police officer, so I don't have that experience. And also, somebody left a comment on that video that shed further light on why it probably was that the police shot him. So I'm going to share that. It's tragic that Alton lost his life, but at the end of the day, he had a pistol in his pocket. No matter how you see it, a gun can still be fired without having it out in a shooting stance. I can't recall the name of the war veteran, who was African American by the way, who pointed out that you can fire a gun through your pocket without putting your hand in your pocket, especially when laying down in a struggle. He showed an example with an unloaded firearm similar to Elton's, and it's quite evident that Elton, if he had gotten his hand in or on the pocket, he could have shot the police officer who was on top of him, trying to stop him from reaching for the gun. The police were called to the scene because a victim said he was threatened by Elton with a gun. So yeah, that put it into more perspective for me and made it make more sense. But overall, it's just telling to me that this woman, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is possibly about to be a Scotus member, is apparently a BLM sympathizer and was praising someone who was at one of the protests that we know tend to get very out of control in a negative way a lot of the time. So, you know, that doesn't seem like the best sign to me. And now let's watch Ted Cruz, who is probably my favorite senator I've ever seen, questioning Ketanji about why she has consistently been so soft on criminals who have committed terrible crimes against children, if you know what I'm talking about. And we will also see her very annoying, but very typical of politicians of her sort, non-answers continually to every question, which is why I sped up her voice and made it sound silly, because I think she is silly.
Let's look at another case. Let's look at United States versus Chazen. Now, Chazen is a particularly nasty case. In Chazen, the defendant was accused, accessed a Dropbox that contained 35 videos and 13 partially downloaded files of prepubescent minor females engaging in sexually explicit conduct. At least 3 of the instances of prepubescent female children were engaged in sexual activity with adult men. The images included the sexual abuse of children, including those as young as toddlers. In this instance, Chazen pleaded guilty. The guidelines recommended a sentence of 78 to 97 months. The prosecution argued that should be what the sentence was. And you sentenced Chazen to just 28 months.
You've picked out, I don't know, 7, 8 cases. I've sentenced more than 100 people.
But not the child pornography.
And in every
These are your child
case,
porn cases.
in every case, Senator, I look at the evidence. I look at the recommendations of not just the government, because my duty as a judge is to consider all of the arguments that are made in a case. I look at the evidence. I talk to the defendants about the harms that they have engaged in. Many of these defendants are people who...
Okay, Judge, with respect, you're not answering my question. Sentencing guidelines by statute require you to have similarly situated defendants sentenced to similar sentences, but you don't sentence Chazen to 84 to 92 months. You sentenced him to 28 months. Why?
Senator, I've said what I'm going to say about these cases. No one case can stand in for a judge's entire record.
Okay, but I'm discussing
And
every one of your cases. So if you're
understand
not
that.
going to explain it, then I'm
Senator,
gonna...
would you please let her respond?
No, not if she's not going to answer my
Well, if
question.
you're just-
Do you I mean, I would welcome your
I didn't
answer,
hear that.
please.
Senator, I didn't say I'm not going to answer.
Okay, well
I
then
said
please
my
tell us,
answer.
in this case, Chazen, why did you sentence him to just 28 months?
Senator, you're looking at the record. I don't have the record here. What I will say is that in every case, I looked at...
I'm trying to understand how you see someone that possesses images of infants and toddlers being sexually violated, and you sentence them to 64% below what the prosecutor is asking for. You don't provide a justification as required by statute.
Senator, no one case can stand in for a judge's entire sentencing record. I've sentenced more than 100 people. You have 8 or 9 cases in that chart.
I just say to the judge, there's no point in responding. He's going to interrupt you.
Thank you.
Look,
Oh, she makes me want to have a potty mouth. Gotta pray about that.
answer. I want to clarify for the record, by the way, the case I was discussing was Cooper and not Chazen.
And I also applied an enhancement, just not to the degree of the guidelines.
You're right. It's a 5-point enhancement under the guidelines. You provide 2.
Yes, so not 0,
Okay,
not
you're right,
the
but-
suggestion
but
that I did.
are you?
You come in with 57
Time has
months.
expired.
Why
Senators
did you
used 2
sentence
minutes
him to
over the
just
allotted.
57 months?
Senator
Why
Coons,
did you sentence him for half the amount?
you're not recognized, Senator. Senator
Do
Coons.
you not want her to answer that question? Chairman, will you allow her to answer the question, or do you not want the American people to hear?
Chairman
Why do you not want the American people to know what happened in the Stewart case, or any of these cases? Chairman Durbin, I've never seen the chairman refuse to allow a witness to answer a question.
I love Senator Cruz's passion and the effort that he puts in to try to actually get the answers that should be heard by the American people. And I especially love what he was saying at the end. But let's finish out here with some comic relief from Senator Cory Booker.
Because the next time a judge comes before us on the right or the left that has a body of work like you do, gosh, one of the some performance artists on our side could pull out one of the cases where they were below the sentencing guideline, say, for example, it was on something like as horrific as rape that we all agree is horrific, and they could suddenly put themselves as the defense. How dare we put someone who's soft on crime? Well, are you soft on crime? God bless America. I want to tell you, when I look at you, this is why I get emotional. I'm sorry, you're a person that is so much more than your race and gender. You're a Christian, you're a mom, you're an intellect, you love books. You have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American. Today, you're my star. You are my harbinger of hope. This country is getting better and better and better. And when that final vote happens and you ascend onto the highest court in the land, I'm going to rejoice.
Yeah, so I don't know what planet he's living on, but I think he would do a good job on Broadway. I don't know why he didn't make that his career instead of politics. Maybe I do, actually. But anyway, the takeaway from all of this that I think is the most important is that clearly the vast majority of the people in charge in the United States and the world are really not good people. There is a lot of darkness surrounding them and in them, and I think it just goes to show how great everyone's need is for the light. And it's a spiritual war between the good and evil, and the light is found in Jesus Christ. So if you have never thought about that before, I would encourage you to look into it. Talk to a Christian friend who you might know, a relative, look into the Bible. Just give it some consideration and see where it takes you. And thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you around.
Thank you again so much for being here today. Since you liked the video enough to make it all the way to the end, don't forget to click the thumbs up and share with somebody else who would also find it interesting. Leave your comments below and we'll all have a conversation. And if you really enjoyed it, check out the description for several different ways that you can support while getting some cool stuff for yourself. Have a wonderful night, afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time zone you're in.